baseball has given me a life that I never imagined, and being around here in Tampa and being recognized by, people quite often, whether I'm here or up in Indiana or wherever. You play on TV, and it's something you sit here and dream of, and get to play the game that you love every day. It's so surreal.
I've had a dream and a vision of wanting to be a Major League Baseball player for forever, since as long as I can remember of when I had thoughts, and so, and you're always like working towards that goal. You're always trying to get there. There's a lot of stops along the way where you don't know if it's going to happen. There's a lot of stops along the way where you're like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if I want to do this. Do I want to go be a normal kid? Do I want to, all these other things.
When I first got to the major leagues, Mark McGwire was the hitting coach for the Cardinals. So when I walked in and saw him, I was like, man, when I was 12, I wanted to be Mark McGwire and hit home runs, play first base. So, you see guys like that, and then you get to meet Albert Pujols and stuff like that. And then they're your teammates. And the next thing you know, you're in a World Series. So you're like, man, this is cool. My 12-year-old self knew that I was going to be here. So they kind of go. And then, the next year was my first full year. And then I was in an all-star game, and it was Chipper Jones's retirement year. So he was giving an all-star speech in the locker room before the game. So there's it's like every year there's something new, to be honest with you. It never gets old. So that's the beauty of playing a kid's game. You still have those moments. And, hopefully I play long enough to where a kid can do what I did when I was my first year. I looked at, Chris Carpenter and told him, I remember watching you when I was younger. And he's like, yeah, well, maybe one day you'll play as long as I have. And I think he was in his 14th year in the major leagues at that time. So hopefully I play long enough to have, a kid make me feel old. But, that's always the hope.
If you're a big leaguer, at any given point, you're one of the best 750 players in the world. And if you even break that down, let's say half of that is position players. So now you're one of 375 in the world at the highest level. And I think that's something that people can, and I know I do, I lose sight of, is like, man, it's really special just to even be a big leaguer just for one day. I don't think people really understand how big of an accomplishment that is. Like, you're one of 375 people in the world.
The thing that clicked for me was when I got to my junior college, I had a Tampa Bay scout that told me he liked me, he thought I could play. And from that December night, 2008, when I first saw him, when pro ball was never even a thought in my mind, that's when my life changed forever, because I was like, I'm going to outwork everyone, and I will do whatever it takes to be great at this game.
You're always working at your craft day in and day out. You're always trying to make sure what you're good at, you keep good and try to make it great. And the things that you struggle with, you make sure you don't take away from the things you're good at to make those better. And you just slowly build those up to where it's all makes you, the best player you possibly can be.
Do something to make yourself better every day. Work harder, whatever that is, whether you're going to weight training, whether you're staying in the cage a little longer, you're doing some more ground balls. There's always work to be done. And I think a lot of kids don't realize that. They kind of just go to practice and then they, go home and they'll do whatever. But like, stay later, get there earlier, stay later, do a little extra, don't worry about what other people think of you or whatever, because when you start putting in those days and those extra, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, those add up over a really long time. And the people who aren't working, you become increasingly better than, I'm not saying like you need to try to be better than one person, but like as a player, you want to be the best version that you can be. You're not trying to outdo anybody. You're trying to beat who you were yesterday. And I think that working harder and putting that extra time in each day will allow you to become a really good, athlete down the road.
High school to college was a big jump because the grittiness of college, like that was something different. The grind, the 100% commitment just to one sport, because like we said, I was a 3-sport athlete, so now I don't even have to think about the other sports at all. It's just solely baseball. That was something to get used to as well. Just, hey, I'm sticking to this sport, I'm sticking to pitching, and that's only it. I'm not doing anything else anymore. So that transition was kind of big for me, and I think I matured late, so it kind of helped. But then then going from the grittiness of college, what I thought was gritty, the 6 a.m. lifts and just the long hours going to lift, going to class, then going to practice and coming back and doing study hall and then doing more work because I have more schooling and then going back to sleep and doing it all over again. It went from that grittiness to then in the minor leagues, you're playing every single day. You still got to get your workouts in. In the minor leagues, you do like team fundamentals in the morning and bunt defenses and, some of that stuff to prepare yourself and make sure and just so then it kind of is also, you haven't done them in 5 months and then all of a sudden you get a bunt and you're like, oh shoot, where do I go again? Kind of deal. So then it's all that and the travel, like in college, you travel kind of nicely and you stay, it's good. You only play on the weekend and then you come back and you might have a Wednesday game at home. But in the minor leagues, you might be gone for 12 days. And they're not fun bus rides. We had a 14-hour ride from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way out to Jackson, Tennessee. And it was, go out there, play 4 games. Then I think we went to Mississippi after, then played a couple more, played 4 more. Then we went to Pensacola, played 4 more. Then we came home, had 1 day off, and then played 4 more at home. And that is a different kind of grit and a different kind of grind. So you just kind of adapt and you learn how to adapt and how to throw and what your body needs to adapt and to basically thrive in that environment.
It is incredible the amount of talent in baseball nowadays. And there's so many different people that are out there trying to take your job and play this game better than you. And you have to take your mental state of mind and your mental strength to a different level that you never thought you were capable of as well. And for me, I think those are the 2 huge components that have allowed me to be an everyday player for 8 years. I'm not the most talented player, I will say that. Defensively might be different. I'm very confident and I know what I can do out there, but man, there's just so many good players out there nowadays, and it's not easy. This game's hard. Everyone throws 100 at my level, and throwing a 93 mile per hour slider there, cutters, everything. The game is talented and as deep as it's ever been, if you ask me, just because it's just incredible how good kids are from your age all the way till guys still in the big leagues at 37, 38 who are, still doing it as well.
There's always somebody out there that wants to outwork you or who is working harder. And I think for me in high school that I wish I would have done the weight training. I wish I would have, had somebody there to kind of push me and to make me do the things that I didn't necessarily want to do. Because when I got to college, I thought I was going to be, I'd go right in there as a freshman and play. And obviously that didn't happen. It kind of got a punch in the mouth with redshirting.
It's a slow process. And if you want instant feel goods in this game, you're not going to get it. It's definitely the same thing. You got to build and build and build. I'm 34 years old and I'm building and building, trying to add new pitches, new things, maybe a new routine, new workout, a new way to take care of myself. So it's always a process.
Do something to make yourself better every day. Work harder, whatever that is, whether you're going to weight training, whether you're staying in the cage a little longer, you're doing some more ground balls. There's always work to be done. And I think a lot of kids don't realize that. They kind of just go to practice and then they, go home and they'll do whatever. But stay later, get there earlier, stay later, do a little extra, don't worry about what other people think of you or whatever, because when you start putting in those days and those extra, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, those add up over a really long time. And the people who aren't working, you become increasingly better than, I'm not saying you need to try to be better than one person, but as a player, you want to be the best version that you can be. You're not trying to outdo anybody. You're trying to beat who you were yesterday. And I think that working harder and putting that extra time in each day will allow you to become a really good, athlete down the road.
It wasn't all just me. I think that's the biggest thing that I can kind of portray is it wasn't just me who got to the big leagues that day. It was everybody who's helped me along the way. And I think that that's kind of the special part about like the journey of sports, right? Is like, you don't get there on your own.
You never want to be that guy to peak too early. You have to get better year after year as your body develops and everything changes. So not trying to get too off track here, but you have to do a lot of things right to be able to make it this level, stick at this level. And for me, I wanted to be an everyday player. And that's what, I've done. And I still feel like I have plenty left in the tank, and I'm going to work my butt off to try to do that. So it's been a heck of a ride, but man, I hope everyone listening on this call is, willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to make it and then some, because once again, that is what it takes.
I bet we're good now. Now we got some audio. All right, Coach,
Thanks, Coach
appreciate
Kaufman. And that was Darren
Yeah.
Kaufman at Fairfield that gave us a heads up.
Big tip of the cap to Coach Kaufman there for catching that for us. We've got audio now on YouTube, and good thing I'm recording this on the computer also, so we'll get it updated. But they heard everybody heard our video there at the beginning, so that's good. Just a quick recap on what we've been talking about with this bracket right here, the 1A through 4A that we see. I was talking to Steve and Jeff about what of these brackets. Obviously, these are early. You talk to any coach, and they're not gonna give credence to these. They're for people like us, is what we said earlier. They're for fans. So what we talked about was, what are some things that are, and I see Coach Yegi there, got the audio. Someone give us a thumbs up in the chat room there. We've got a pretty good crowd here joining us. Give us a thumbs up in the chat room. Make sure we got audio now. I think Alex Ladd there just give us a thumbs up. So I think we're good to go with audio there.
Yeah,
Well, you got a rookie running the show here. That's what you get when you got Hardy the Hat guy running the show here. So let's keep going here. Let's talk about this bracket again now that we have audio. So looking at the bracket, the one that intrigued me was that 2A. You've got Eastside and Providence. Both were in the state finals last year. You had University that's been there 2 out of the last 3 years. Thanks, Alex. Just got your message there. We've got Fairfield, who's got a stud pitcher there at Alec Herschberger. We're going to talk to him later. But Delphi, Carroll, Centerville, Wapahani, Forest Park, Muncie Central. I mean, this is up in the air. The 2A really intrigues me a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in that bracket. Steve, recap again what you were talking about with the 1A bracket that was standing out for you.
Oh, 1A, I like that Borden is getting some love, and Borden has not won a state final or a state title or been there, but maybe this is the year. And Eric Stotts is the coach there, and Gavin Gentry is you got 2A players in high school all over the place, but he had 472 with 5 bombs, 26 driven in, stole 20 bases, was 7-3 on the mound, 159. And then Washington Township has James Kirk back, not Star Trek, but I don't
Not
think
captain.
If he's a Trekkie, he might be. 393, and he drove in 25. They had a lot of seniors go out, but they must be reloading because here they are ranked second coming back. And Central Catholic all the time. Zach Coulter's got something really good going on there in Union Mills, South Central.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, Lagodi, Luke Nante. I think that's Tim Nante, Hall of Famer. I think that must be his grandson. He hit 392 with 31 RBIs and 27 stolen bases. He's back. Isaac Wagner, who was a freshman, went 9-1. He's supposed to be back for the Lions. So that's
well, and we know how good Shakamak's schedule is. One thing we talked about before the audio was fixed was how strong Shakamak's schedule is. You know,
Yeah,
even
Coach
Coach
Yair knows
Gobert.
that because he's been around that program his whole life, you know.
Yep, and Coach Gobert even mentioned it in the interview. This is a 1A school. I think they got about 300 students, and you know they may come into the tournament with, you know, I don't want to jinx anybody, but because of their strength of schedule, they may come in with 8 to 10 wins. It's kind of like what Lafayette Central Catholic did for all those years. You know, they come in and they don't have a 25-1 record or anything like that because they're playing 4A schools. Matter of fact, Shakamak, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in 1 or 2, possibly 3, that has a tougher schedule than Shakamak. I mean, so they come in, you know, the old adage, to be strong, play strong, and they sure
And I
are.
think
And
when they play Jasper and teams like that, they're willing to go to their field. So they're not even coming to Jasonville. They're going,
yeah,
you know, wherever.
right. And they've got a long history too. I mean, that is a traditional program. A lot of the schools up north, you know, don't really know a lot about Shakamak, but they will. You know, because they're going to make another run again this year. And I got to give a quick shout to Cowan. Last year, you know, I always joke about, you know, of everybody that is on our shows, I'm the least qualified to be doing interviews and everything. And Cowan last year, I'm interviewing him for the semi-state preview show. I called him the wrong name for like the first 2 minutes of the show before he finally corrected me. But hey, you know, Heart of the Hat guy, what do you get? So let's go on to Jeff. You were talking about that 4A bracket, and you're right, man. There are some juggernauts in that 4A bracket, or that 4A.
Yeah, you look at those top.
Bowl.
You look at those top 3, Dan, and it's Hoosier Crossroads Conference written all over it. I mean, those 3 teams are going to beat up on each other. It's going to be a great race for the conference title in the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. And then, of course, you look at Jasper, the tradition they've got, and there's just a lot of good teams all the way up and down those 10 right there. I think it's going to be a great race at 4A this year.
Yeah, I tell you what, Fishers has, first of all, they had 3 alumni that were drafted this year in this year's draft. Fishers and Jasper were both young last year. Of course, Jasper, you know, they're going to talk about it here when we talk to Coach Gobert and Coach Cherry coming up here. But Center Grove also, you're talking 5, potentially 5 D1 commits on Center Grove, and they're sitting there at what, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5th. So, and never count out Jeffersonville, New Albany, Cathedral, Lake Central, Carmel. You know, these are the big schools, and that race, I mean, top to bottom. Well, let's talk about the 3A. That's one we haven't talked about real quick. There was a little bit of I don't want to say controversy, but confusion maybe when the first polls came out, because it showed Andrean at number 1 in 3A. Then it showed him also getting votes in 4A. But that was that. I think 2020 kind of messed everybody up when it came to
that's that success factor.
Yeah, the success factor.
They were up in 4A for a little while. Here they're a 2A size school, but they always play. Right. They play up. You know, they're up 2 classes and they were in 4A.
Well, and you look at this right here. You've got Silver Creek, which is basically New Albany's neighbor, and you know Silver. You know, we talked about this in the every year we do a top stories show. And if we could talk Little League for just a second, if you look at this right here, Silver Creek and New Albany are 2 of the juggernauts in Little League every year. You know, Silver Creek has been in the state finals in Little League 2 years in a row. They won it a year ago and then lost to Brownsburg this year. Brownsburg and Silver Creek just kind of flopped. They were both in the title game 2 years in a row. New Albany's there every year. So, I mean, a lot of these good community programs, same with American Legion. Jasper had a great American Legion program this year. They would have been in the finals, but they had some scheduling conflicts that kept them from getting in the American Legion finals. So, I mean, just a quick throw out there because the community ball is still alive. I love the travel scene. I love all that, but I also like the community ball. So this is kind of, you know, the coaches got some input on this. People like our Jeff Luzader got some input on this. It's a preseason poll. It's fun to talk about, you know, talking to all these coaches that we got to talk to at the IHS BCA clinic. Man, they're so excited because one of the things they all talked about, and not just at the IHS BCA clinic, was that this is the first year where everybody coming back at least has 1 year experience because they lost that 2020 season. So they got to play 2021. Now they're back, and a lot of these kids have a a year under their belt. So that's gonna make it's either going to even things out or it's going to shake it up one way or the other. But either way, all the coaches were excited about finally having a full season. And speaking of coaches, like I said, we were at the IHS BCA clinic, always a fantastic show put on there by Brian Abbott and his crew. And we talked to a lot of coaches, and here's kind of a summary of the interviews we did with all the coaches at the IHS BCA clinic this year. Let's give it a listen.
Indianapolis baseball and Indiana baseball in general has gotten lots better, and a lot of it is because of this coaches association. I think they are very good as coaches association, and I think that's helped us a lot, educating coaches and getting young guys involved, and the talent level's gone up, with a lot more facilities around and indoor places and turf fields that are coming across and everything. The level of baseball has gone up tremendously over the years, for sure.
I used to complain a lot about kids can't lead today. Back in 2019, I got tired of complaining about it and said, "Why don't you do something about it?" So we started a leadership council back in 2019 with our program, where we teach leadership 1 day a week. Every Wednesday, right now, we have class. And our leadership council comes in, I put together a curriculum, we might go through some role playing, I give them some homework, and I just create a leadership class to teach our kids how to lead, not only for our program, but that carries on in life with them. And that skill has gone away a little bit with our society today, not just kids. So it's important to me. I want our kids to have life lessons when they leave the program.
To get this opportunity at 25 years old, definitely exciting. I look at, guys like Terry at Jasper and things like that. That is truly a goal of mine, just to kind of stay here and, build something up that we can be proud of. So, a big thing, and I know I kind of talked to Steve a little bit about, just increasing the intensity of practice, increasing the tempo, and just, being that young buck coming in, and we're going to bring it day in and day out.
It's interesting because we have a lot of travel ball clubs up there, and just like down in the central part of the state, all over the state. So a lot of the kids cross over with the other kids and other teams from other schools, and I think it's helped the competition factor because the rivalries, I think, have increased across the board because a lot of these kids do play together in the travel scene. So once they get to the high school level, they have that connection with them, and they want to beat their buddy. And I'll compare it to the old days, like when I was a kid growing up in a small town. Kids from my community, some of them went to Whiting, some of them went to Hammond Clark. So when I played them, or when we played them, we wanted to beat them because those were our buddies. And it's the same scenario, I think, now on a much bigger scale with the travel teams, because all these kids have played together. Now they're playing against each other in the spring season, and they want to beat their buddies. So I think it's really elevated the competition level in the region.
We won that first game of the year, and that was the magical 500 last year. So it was nice to get that. And, I'll be entering into my 37th year as the varsity coach there at Jacksonville. All my wins have occurred at Jacksonville, and it's been a pleasure to be the coach. It's been a nice ride, but it's a credit to the kids that I've had play for me. They've worked hard, and I've enjoyed coaching them. I've had numerous kids play at the next level.
Coach Maloney hit on it big, and one thing is, and it's the big thing going on, is just changing the culture and changing these boys' attitudes as far as expecting to win. And when they hit the field, it's a whole new mindset. And we're developing young men, and that's one of the big things I want to teach is not what we only do on the baseball field, is what we do outside of the field, what we do in the classroom, what we do at the grocery store, stuff like that. Is kind of what I established, is just teaching these boys how to be men.
I'm at a school right now that is an oddity. We've never consolidated in 100 and some years at Peru High School, and we have 5 programs. The current coach is the winningest coach in the history of that school, all coaching at the same time. We have multiple Hall of Famers, from wrestling to tennis to others, and it's neat because our kids are getting, in multiple programs, a different way of doing it, how maybe all of us would have done it. and it still works. They still congratulate people the right way. They still shake hands. They still address the umpires the right way. They still hustle on and off. They handle success and failure, but they still play to win. And sometimes that's not maybe out there. Sometimes they're just playing for stats.
Yeah.
And Brew plays to win baseball games and win championships the right way, and our kids doing multiple programs. It's a perfect school system. I've stayed there for one reason. I just love the kids in the community on what values they're trying to teach kids. And I hope when you see our team play, you say, boy, you know, win or lose, they get on and off. They encourage their teammates. They're respectful of the umpires. They congratulate teams the right way. They get their running in without being told after the game. And they still go into second pretty hard. They still dive around.
I mean, what I get a lot, what you have to understand is because I have a similar look, much younger similar look, because I have a much younger similar look, I get a lot of times that people will go, hey, do you know Phil Webster? You know, he taught me 25 years ago, or so he knows how to teach the game. And it's a skill that not everybody has. You know, as an educator, he knows how to relate this to kids. So as a head coach, I let him call the shots. If he suggests something, we take it.
The very first game we get battle tested. He's won a state championship. He's played and coached in the state championship. So, just battle tested, keeping our kids humbled and hungry all the way through. You know, they get faced with a lot of adversity all the way throughout the course of the season. So, helping those guys learn that, hey, there's a big picture ahead, and playing the schedule that we play, it's really tough. So it's good for us though.
But we just have kids that like to fly around, play with their hair on fire, high energy, and just understanding the commitment that it takes to compete in the Porter County Conference, which you played the defending state champion 3 times. We lost in the regional to them 6-3. We lost in the Porter County tournament championship 5-2. I mean, we are in a situation where we understand that we have some pieces if we buy in and we do everything that we need to do for the guys in the locker room.
Probably one of our best wins we've ever had. Obviously, we played McCutcheon, and Twin Lakes hadn't beat McCutcheon since like 2000, the year 2000. And in 19, we played them with our team, and they came up and we beat them 11-5. And they were ranked like 5th in the state, and so that was a huge win for our kids because our kids know where I've been, and they want to win that game. My license plate was Mavs 22, and they kept asking me, when are you going to change that license plate? When are you going to change that license plate? Well, that's the question that came up to me after that game. I said, Coach, now you can change that blankety license plate, and so we did. So now I'm TLBA 22. So
these kids just want to be the best they can possibly be. The wins and losses, they don't really matter. It's them becoming the best person, the best player, because as they become, they become the best baseball player they can become. They're also using that to become the best student. They're using that to become the best person. And, we have all kinds of life lessons that we talk about all the time. So it's probably been better for me than it has any of the kids that have ever played for me.
Fellas, tell me how fun that was at the IHSBCA clinic this year. Man alive, talking to all those guys. That was like a lot of these videos, we really had a hard time getting those down so that this show wasn't 2 hours long. Folks, before we keep moving here, I want to throw this hashtag up there. Write this down. Coaches, all of you watching this, whether you're live or not. This hashtag, we want to make sure we cover you guys and get everything we can for your high school season on our show each week. A couple of easy ways to do that. You see our Twitter feed, our Twitter handle up there in the top right, Home Plate BAI. You can just tag us or use that hashtag, TWIBAI. This week, in baseball across Indiana. That's what that stands for. Put that hashtag on there, and whether it's a video clip or any kind of highlight. You saw me a few weeks ago. I think I put the tug of war champions from South Bend St. Joe on there. So we're going to put anything. We want to cover the high school baseball scene. This is an easy way that you can help us do that. We want to make sure we showcase your good games, your good players, and just anything positive about your team that's going on. You know, another thing that we've all been talking about, we love the rally chains, the rally belts. We got a team that does a bowling pin. We want to see those too. We're going to put them up there. We're also going to have a player of the week, the Baseball Across Indiana Player of the Week. We're going to have that. Make sure you tag TWI BAI this week in Baseball Across Indiana to get your person recognized for their achievements on the field and off the field. Also, just a quick note, we've been working with, you saw Coach Gandalf there in that last interview. We're going to have a all-star team. We're going to call it the Baseball Across Indiana 9. That's right. We're going to have 9 players that our crew is going to pick for the top players in the state, and the MVP will be crowned the captain of the Baseball Across Indiana 9, and we have 9 custom baseball bats made by Tom Gandalf of Gandalf Bats down there in the Center Grove area, in the Greencastle area down there. And he is making the bats. We support him because we love what he's doing. And these are going to be some neat things. So TWI BAI this week in Baseball Across Indiana. Make sure you tag that hashtag in all of your highlights. Guys, let's keep things moving. The next interview we have here, boy, this was a lot of fun. I'll tell you what. This interview, I think, comes down to about 20 minutes, and it's between last year's 2 coaches for the 4A state title game. We're talking about Matthew Cherry of Jasper and Matthew Cherry of, Steve, you got to keep me in line here. Matthew Cherry of Fishers and Terry Gobert of Jasper, and just 2 great guys. I could listen to these guys talk all day. You guys are done hearing me talk. Let's listen to these guys as they talk about last season and the upcoming season. We're back continuing our coverage of the high school baseball scene in Indiana for 2022, and I'm excited to have these 2 gentlemen with me here right now. We have Coach Cherry, the skipper for Fishers, and then we go all the way down to Jasper for Coach Gobert. And guys, first of all, thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to this. Of course, you know, folks joining us here, you know these names. This was the 4A state title matchup from 2021. And guys, before I ask some questions here, I want to go over some stats for some people watching here real quick. Let's start in Fishers, and let's get it right this time. The magic of editing. 2021 season, you were 23-13, 4A state runner-up to our other guest, Coach Gobert there at Jasper. Total 2018 state title. 2021, you also had 2 alumni that were picked in the Major League Baseball draft, Luke Albright and Grant Richardson. You're in that Hoosier Crossroads Conference. The conference itself, I believe, has 2 state titles and 1 person in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Of course, your cohorts there in the conference, we're talking Avon, Brownsburg, yourself, Franklin Central, Hamilton Southeastern, Noblesville, Westfield, Zionsville. Baseball fans like me, you know how tough that conference is. But here's an interesting stat right here. Program started 2007, and Coach Cherry has been the skipper there at Fishers ever since. And let's go down to Jasper, and some may think of this as a tale of 2 different stories, but, you know, talking to these guys, it's all history to them. It matters nothing on 2022, but let's talk about some Jasper stats. Of course, 2021, like I mentioned, you were the 4A state title winner, 31-2. 6 state titles, if my math is right, 15 semi-state, 2 Indiana Players of the Year. That was Matthew Mock back in 97 and Scott Rowland in 93. 3 people in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. That's yourself, Coach, as well as Ray Howard, who is the director of the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, and that's Scott Rowland. You're part of that Southern Indiana Conference, which has 11 state titles total, 10 in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, and just a historic conference with yourself, Evansville Central, Castle, Evansville Mater Dei, Evansville North, Memorial, Wrights, Harrison, Lincoln, Bosse. These are some historic programs. And like I mentioned just a few seconds ago, guys, and again, thanks again for joining us. We could throw those stats out the window going forward. You can't fool these guys. So putting all those stats aside, that's a quick look back. Now let's look ahead, and I'm glad to have Steve joining us here too. Steve, I'm going to take the first question, guys. Let's just pass it. Steve, you're on the right here on my screen, so let's go to you first. Let's just take a season outlook. I know both of your teams are kind of young. Maybe tell us who you got coming back. Are there, that with that conference, you really got to circle everybody as far as, who you're watching for on your schedule. But who are some of the teams that you think are going to be strong again this year? So generally speaking, what's the outlook 2022 for the Fishers Tigers?
Well, we returned pretty near everybody from our state runner-up team. We're returning 17 guys that dressed last year and 8 that started in the state championship game and both pitchers that threw. And so we're, obviously we're pretty excited to make the run that we made and then to return as many people to have that experience and take that into this upcoming season. But as you mentioned, man, our conference is tough. And, Westfield and Zionsville both were co-champs last year, and they returned a pretty heavy lineup and pitching staff as well. And Noblesville is always tough. They're always finishing the top half. And then you throw in the Avon, the Brownsburg, and Southeastern, and Franklin Central, and it's a grind. But we're looking forward to it. We returned several guys from that state runner-up team and a lot that contributed and had some big hits and some key moments on our run to get us there. So we're just hoping that we can build off of that time and kind of take that confidence into the full season this year.
And looking outside your conference a little bit, other than our fellow guest here, Coach Gobert and Jasper, looking at people on your schedule, who are some of the teams that you're playing on the schedule that are looking to be very competitive this year?
Sure. Outside of our conference, Homestead's on our schedule. We played them every year to open up. We meet at Taylor University and kind of meet halfway and open up with them. And then obviously we saw them again in the regional. So that's always a tough opponent from the north that we try to schedule kind of around the state a little bit. We'll play Columbus North again. We'll go down to their place this year. They came up last year. I think they were ranked number 2 when we played them last year. And we're a loaded team. And then Mount Vernon, we always try to get on the schedule. We actually had them on the schedule last year, and we're not going to play them again right now, but they're kind of always the opponent that when we get a rain out or anything that we try to look to schedule and add them. And obviously, they were in the Final Four last year. And so those are kind of the top teams in our area. We go to Tennessee every year to start our spring break and play 4 games down there against really quality opponents. And so that kind of gets us going and gets us prepared for our conference that starts week 2. So,
well, you're playing some teams with some names right there. Of course, you led off with Homestead. It was Connor Matheson, last year's Player of the Year. Then, of course, you went to Coach King at Mount Vernon. I'm drawing a blank on the name of that player there that started out just like he was going to break every home run record in the state from Mount Vernon last year.
The catcher, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go down to Jasper and Coach Gobert. Kind of the same questions, just a general outlook on the season. Who do you have coming back? And let's talk about that conference schedule.
Yeah, we have back our third baseman, shortstop, second base, and then our left fielder, right fielder. And we took a big losses, center field, catcher, first base, all those guys. They played as sophomores. They didn't have a junior season, but they were very experienced guys. And then our 1 and 3 pitcher probably definitely our 1 have graduated as well. And then we do have, as I said, some starters back. And it's an annual thing. You just got to find new guys, plug in. Anytime you lose your catcher, that's the first place you really try to work on. And we got a junior that's going to compete and a sophomore they're going to compete, but they really don't have varsity innings. So they'll be big on us. And one thing that really helped us last year was it was our first season to actually play in the Southern Indiana Athletic Conference. And as Matthew knows, conference prepares you. And that was a much tougher, I don't mean this in a bad way, but day in, day out. Like we went undefeated, and I don't know if we beat anybody by more than 2 runs. You know, it was very tight every game. It helped us prepare for the tournament. We saw some really good pitching, some really good athletes, and some of the best teams in Southern Indiana are in that conference. And you mentioned that whole crew, you know, our sectional alone with Castle and North, they're going to be loaded again this year. It's Central, Wrights, Harrison, you throw Memorial in our schedule, different class, but you know, their history and such a tough opponent to play. We play New Albany every year. Coach McIntyre comes over to our place on a Friday night, and we've had 1,500 to 2,000 people there. We make it our youth night, and he's beaten us more than anybody has, but he's smart enough to understand that it's going to help you down the road. If they, you know, playing in that environment, it's hard to get that in high school baseball. So we don't get that every night, but that's always a big game. Columbus East always plays in our invitational tournament. We always try to play Silver Creek. Sound like Matthew said, there's some team, if you get an opening, you like to pick up. Carmel's actually going to come out in our tournament, the Hall of Fame tournament, first weekend of May. Yeah, I know, real good scheduling on my part. And, you know, Southridge, always been in a rivalry, but just a tremendous program with Gene Mattingly. So that it's when I look at that's going to help us get better. All the teams we play Shakamak, who, if you're from the north, you have no idea, but they're amazing. It's such a small school, and every year they come down and compete, and you see them up in Indianapolis a lot. So we have some regulars, and it's kind of a mix. There aren't a lot of 4A schools down here. We have to go to, you know, all the way to New Albany, Bloomington. We always play north. Phil does a good job there, and then in Evansville or Terre Haute we played. And now Northview's coming down, and they've got a good program. They're in our tournament. Edgewood was runner-up a couple years ago. They're in our Hall of Fame tournament as well. So you just try to play good programs year in and year out. And that's one thing I liked in the past. We only had 7 conference games, so you can pick up all you want. Matthew, how many games are you committed to in your conference?
We're at 14 now. We used to be at 18, but
yeah, that's a big difference.
Everybody home and home.
Yeah, but don't you think, on the standpoint, it's nice to have those openings and play some different programs?
Yeah, it is. You know, I love playing our conference guys. So it's that tough balance of wanting to play them night in, night out, but also, you know, spread around. And we like I mentioned, we try to go up north and try to play someone down south, just kind of spread out around the state.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing both of you are saying is, you know, good programs keep playing good to stay good. And you guys are both dropping some team names there. I could talk about that Shakamak program for a long time. I looked at their schedule last year, and they're a small school. And you look at their schedule, I mean, it was the toughest non-4A schedule in the state, bar none.
Yeah, I think they get like 300 kids or something, and they opened up with 6 straight 4A schools. They had that philosophy, let's play the best around and let's get better, and that's how you do it. I mean, you look at the conference Matthew's in, and, you know, if you ask me to name top programs, I'd say both starting at sectional his, and that's basically his conference, but that's just brutal. I mean, you're in and you're out. So
yeah, maybe and Coach Cherry knows this, maybe one of the most brutal sectionals in the
state. Is. Yeah. You're in and you're out.
Yep. Well, Steve, before looking ahead, maybe a general perspective on the high school baseball scene in Indiana. And Steve, I'll pass things over to you to follow through with that.
I think we'll go back to Coach Gobert and say, I've heard for years people talk about we want to do it the right way. We play the game the right way. Maybe you can describe what the right way is for you, and are there some teams or particular coaches that do it the right way that you respect?
Yeah, good question. To me, the right way is you work really hard. You try to get the best performance out of your team, but you don't emphasize winning to the point where the kids think that's the measurement of success or failure. You know, it's such a game of so much failure that we just try to teach kids to come out, give it your best effort, play for the team, be respectful, be competitive. But, you know, at the end of the game, you should be able to look across the dugout or across the field, and feel respected and be respected of your opponent. And, you know, for me, it goes back to, I followed Ray Howard, and what a great role model alone to follow Ray. And you look at certain programs, but Laporte's where it started with me. Coach Schreiber, one of the best days of my life. I stopped by there coming home from a Cubs game, knocked on his door and spent the day with him and learned a lot about what I consider doing it the right way. Chris McIntyre, New Albany. I'd play him 28 times a year because I know he does it right. These kids don't talk back. They just play hard. They put the ball down. They put it in play. And any coach that's a good coach loves those kind of days. When you can, if you lose, against Matthew, if they had won that game, I have no problem with it. It's so easy to look across the field and say, okay, those guys work hard. They teach kids the right things. And it makes it, to me, that's one of the most important things as a veteran. It's more fun.
When coaches will share and have respect for one another. They want to beat each other's brains out when it's game time, but they're sharing the information.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
what I love about baseball.
In all sports and in all situations, but
nobody shares like baseball. Like I coached football, I coached basketball. I was a graduate assistant in basketball and baseball, and I coached high school football. And they may say they're sharing, but they're holding back. But
my pat line on that is the basketball coaches will socialize and be as nice as anybody, but they're not going to show you the inbounds play.
Exactly.
You just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
We just
same line of questioning. What's playing, doing it right, and who do you see out there that you emulate?
Sure. Well, I played for Coach Brayden at Anderson University, who's a Hall of Famer. One over 1,000 teams. What's that?
They call him Bama.
Yeah, Bama. Yep. Coach Bama. So I played for him and then stayed on and coached with him for a couple of years. And honestly, that's kind of what we wanted to model our program after was, how he designed his program and taught guys to play hard, but also to be a family and compete for one another. And, at the end of the day, we're all going to be a part of a family at some point or a part of a team, whether it be at work or in the house or at home, and just kind of teaching guys that it's not always about you, and how can you walk alongside the guy next to you and compete for them, even when things aren't going your way or aren't going the way you want them to go. So modeled a lot after Coach Brayden, and then honestly, Coach Gobert is one of them. I don't know if he remembers this, but in 2006, I was a JV coach at Southeastern and went down to his tournament with Southeastern, and Coach Curry brought me along and just kind of hung out with him, and then getting the job the next year at Fisher's, that time with Coach Gobert down there, just talking baseball and seeing how it's done, and obviously a championship program and seeing what they do and how they compete. And then
the rest of it we can't talk about, right, Matthew?
Yeah, exactly.
The rest we're not going to talk about, though, right? Okay.
Right.
Just making sure.
Dave Ginder up at Fort Wayne Carroll.
Yeah.
He's also a Coach Brayden disciple. We played him early when I first got the job. I called, made sure we had a doubleheader with him every year, and that went on for about 5 or 6 years. But just going up and watching them play, seeing them compete. But those teams that you know that if you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it because they're so fundamentally sound, and again, they compete for one another. And honestly, that was kind of the scouting report going into the state game with Jasper was, we got to attack the zone on the mound because we can't walk them. If we put someone on base, they're going to beat us. They're going to make us pay for that. If we give them an error, they're going to make us pay. And so playing against those kind of teams that you just know, like you got to bring your lunch to compete, every single pitch, and any mistake that's made, you got to be ready to defend and compete and fight against that. But then guys in our conference too, you mentioned earlier about sharing, and outside of my coaching staff, probably my best friends are Justin Kiever at Noblesville, Ryan Bennell at Westfield, and Jared Moore at Zionsville. And we're constantly bouncing ideas off one another. And sometimes it's to the point of like, oh, I probably shouldn't share that with you, but we're so close, and then getting to compete against them, two times a year, used to be 3 times a year. Just making sure that your guys are ready and prepared because you knew what you're going to get when you showed up at the park against those types of coaches.
I'll tell you Steve, I'm going to steal this last question from you because it's a fan question, but I'll just kind of following up with what you guys said. This is why Steve, me, Jeff up in Lafayette. This is why we do this. I mean, we're all baseball fans, but we love what the high school baseball coaches are doing across the state. And this is just two perfect examples of it. Yes, they're two very successful coaches, but they're also, it's about making successful men. And that's why I tell Steve all the time, you got to help me rein it in, because I could talk to, do these interviews for 3 hours at a time. But let's talk about that fan side. I want to have you guys put your marketing hats on here for a second. I'm an easy sell. I tell everybody that. You open the gates to the baseball field and I'm in. You guys both have some great atmospheres. I just think about that semi-state down there in Jasper last year, but just during the regular season, tell me about the atmosphere, or maybe the baseball in general for this season coming up. And Coach Cherry, you finished there. We'll bring it back to you. What are you personally excited about for the 2022 baseball season?
I just think the talent in Indiana is just off the charts right now. Obviously we have the number one player in the country in the 2023 class at Max Clark down at Franklin. So that's a draw, but then you talk about all the arms and all the Division I college signees and commits and potential pro guy, draft guys. Like, I just think the talent is just unbelievable in the state of Indiana. And you throw that in with, the coaches that we just mentioned across the state that, teach the game the right way and compete and, are friends with one another, not just, trying to beat each other on the field, but then, they care about each other and want to see success in each other's programs outside of playing one another. I just think it's a special situation that we're in right now in Indiana. Obviously Coach Gobert and I, having teams in the state finals that are young and bringing lots of talent back, but then you go through the whole state, and there were teams that lost game one that were super talented that are bringing a lot of guys back. And I just, the talent across the state, I don't know that you could find better amateur baseball being played in the area to come out and watch some of the high school games. You look at our conference, you mentioned that earlier, but I think we've had 3 state champions in the since 2014. Noblesville won. We won in 18, Southeastern won 19, and we were back last year, all of us in the same sectional.
Yeah.
You throw Westfield in that, and then also in our conference, the history that Brownsburg had 10, 15 years ago, and Coach Roman's gotten them playing well again. So I just, just coming out to watch, you're going to see quality baseball, great talent, great coaches, and people that are teaching the game the right way.
And the players they've got a level of energy that they really want to be there. I absolutely love it. Coach Govert, same question. Let's bring it over to you. That fan hat, what are you looking forward to in 2022?
Well, I just think I started here in 1988, and the biggest difference I see, our facilities across Indiana are just amazing. I can remember I went out to Arizona and we went to this high school. They'd won the big school state championship. And I thought, this is going to be amazing. This has been a while, but facility, and they had like 150 seats, and then you see all these ballparks, and there's a lot of people putting in artificial turf now. I guess I can say turf, I'm showing my age, but tons of facilities doing this, upgrading the bleachers, better setting, just we've been proud for years. All our games are on radio, home and away, and televised, which for scouting purposes I don't really like, but that's all right. And but just just for kids to have that, and there's so many good coaches now. That's the biggest difference I see, is so much more pride in programs. We're cranking kids out. Number one, just quality programs, putting out good young men, but also the fact that so many kids are having opportunities to play. I think Indiana tries to embrace the travel ball, high school ball marriage, where some areas really seem to fight it. But that's the biggest difference I see, is when you walk into a facility, and it doesn't have to have more than 100, 150 seats, but you can tell a lot about a program when you just look at their warning track, look at the dugouts, are they clean? Are they neat? Is it painted? And there's so much more pride in our facilities. So I think Indiana kids, with the facilities in Indianapolis and the surrounding area too, they don't have to go as far in the summer tournaments. There's more opportunities to play with bad weather. It's just such a better game. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to our coaches association. And I know how good we are as I've gotten older and traveled and visited other places, but we have one of the most united, and those guys on that council are just awesome. And I have to give Scott up a shout out earlier. He's been a mentor of mine. You know, he followed Coach Schreiber. I followed Ray Howard. We were both pretty young and dumb. And I look at what he's done in the facilities there and maintaining such a good program. But bottom line is, I just think it goes hand in hand. We're getting more support from administrators. Schools are pumping money into baseball facilities. Why? Because guys are doing it right. I mean, Indianapolis is not the only measurement of a good program. I know some guys that are in some of the smallest schools and they have a difficult route and maybe they're not even been there. And they're some of the best programs around. And the other thing, lastly, is we're hanging in there on the length of our careers. There's not a lot of sports, you know, there's a handful in each sport, but I hope baseball guys stay with it and cut down the turnover. So I think that's the biggest difference I've seen in my 600 years here.
Well, you heard it right there, folks. It's go at everything from good teams, good coaches, make good men, make good competition. And if I could sum it up, it's what we've been trying to sell for the last few weeks here on Baseball Across Indiana. And that is Indiana is a baseball state. And that's because of people like these two great men right here. Coaches, I appreciate it. Best of luck in 2022. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you throughout the year. How good was that interview, guys? I tell you what, that was another one. I think that interview went 45 minutes total. It's hard to edit that one down. Hey, let's keep things moving. We're going to interview some players. We got a couple more coaches mixed in there as well. So we are going to Fairfield. We wanted to talk to this kid. He's a junior this year, Alec Herschberger. We got to talk to him and Coach Kaufman. Herschberger is he's non-committed junior left-hander. He's got a really nice delivery. It's kind of a unique delivery, but man, I tell you what, he made headlines this year all summer with his summer leagues. So we got to talk to him and Coach Kaufman about that NECC conference and Northeast Indiana altogether. Let's give it a listen. We're going to Fairfield. We're talking Falcons. We're with Coach Kaufman and junior Alec Herschberger. Who's Alec Herschberger? Well, basically, let's fill you in here. If you haven't been online in the last year, he lit up Twitter this summer. Going back to 2021, Alec, I think, and tell me if any of this is wrong. Basically, you had no hitters last year. Your first season your first start was the first game of the season versus Goshen, where both pitchers, you and senior for Goshen, Reese Fisher, I think his name was, combined for a no-hitter. Thanks to a couple errors, you guys ended up taking the loss on that, but you also combined, I think you were 6 1/3 or 6 2/3, basically a third of an inning away from a second no-hitter versus the East Side, who was in the state championship this year, from another no-hitter. You ended the season by the stats I see here, 97 Ks, which is good, but only in 54 innings pitched and with only 19 base on balls. That's pretty impressive. The kind of a summary of your 2021 season, 0.90 ERA, which is a team record as a sophomore. You got some time to beat that. Team MVP as a sophomore. Going through the summer to catch us up to where we are today, you continued the racking up the Ks throughout the summer with the Nitro Gold 2023 team. Some of them that I'm seeing here, I mean, I could just go through these stats like crazy. 19 Ks and a no-hitter at the PBR Great Lakes Regional versus another Indiana team. PBR puts you at the top 10 uncommitted pitchers for the class of 2023. I know you had another great showing at the PBR Futures game where Indiana represented, wiping Wisconsin 10-4. And another good stat here, you had a 4.0 GPA. That's a summary of Alec Herschberger, only a junior this year, and what a junior class across the state. We could talk about that for a whole show. But I talked about you a little bit, Alex. Now what I'd like to do is let's look at, I'm going to have you fill us in with the rest of the team. Let's start with maybe your seniors by what I see. I think you guys have, 4 seniors this year?
Yeah, yep, that's right.
Tell us a little bit about your senior class.
We got Casey Murray, who's looking to have a big year this year. He has one of the nicest swings I've ever seen, and he plays a great outfield. And we got Brayden Chubb, who plays a solid first base. He hit really well for us at the end of the year last year. So looking forward to seeing how he does. And we got Dylan Weaver, who is an outfielder and he can pitch as well. And just really looking forward to seeing how he does and just how the rest of our guys do on our team. We have a really big sophomore class as well.
I see that. I'm looking at what you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 sophomores.
Yeah.
And, you got one more fellow junior there in the class. Is that right?
Yeah, we got Jack Yoder.
Tell me about who's going to fill in. Obviously, you're probably going to lead off opening day. Tell us about who else. You mentioned one other there. Tell us who else is going to share the mound time with you this year.
Owen Miller is going to be a big number 2 for us. He's a great pitcher. He had a great year last year. We were all really impressed by how well he did. And we're also going to have Brayden Chubb, like I said before. He's a great reliever. We got Cohen Yoder, who's a sophomore, who's another great reliever. So I think we're set up to be a very well pitching team this year.
Well, before I pass things over to your coach, I want to talk to him about the team. I want to get your perspective on the conference this year. I want to talk to your coach. I love the NECC. It's one of the bigger conferences in the state. 12 schools. I think of course, Eastside, they ended up at Victory Field last year. Then you had a 2-way tie for second, a 2-way tie for third, and a 2-way tie for fourth last year. So a very tight conference. Alec, who do you see? Maybe you guys play summer ball all over. Who are some of the teams or maybe some of the players that you're looking at, in the NECC this year, or even in your schedule, non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I mean, one guy obviously is Owen Willard from Eastside. I mean, he's an incredible pitcher. I think he's going to have a really great year this year, and so is Eastside. They're a really tough team, and I think we'll definitely be seeing them later in the year.
Well, that's Coach Willard's son there. Yeah, he's putting together a run there. And Coach, let's bring it over to you. Like I mentioned, that conference schedule there real quick. It's beginning of the season. Rankings don't mean anything really, but just kind of prognosticate. That's the biggest word I'll use all week. The 2022 NECC. What are we looking at? Who are some of the teams that you think maybe have some players that you're probably going to circle on your schedule this year?
I think this year might be the deepest year that our conference has had in a long time. And we had a great year last year as a conference, but the senior class is very talented, and it's going to be. I think there's 5 or 6 teams that could win the conference. We obviously got Eastside, the reigning runner-up state champs. They won our conference last year, well deserved for that. Went undefeated, which is hard to do in a 12-team conference, playing 11 conference games with pitching. Fremont is an awesome 1A school. They've got a lot of talent. Pentecost and Bach, who got all state for them. And then obviously Owen Willard got all state. And then you got Garrett. Garrett's bringing back Kellum. He just signed with Ball State. We got 2 D1 pitchers in our conference, and potentially our third one here eventually. And I mean, they're just, you look down. I mean, Miller, that behind the plate for Fremont, he's caught since a freshman. He's a senior as well. Westview's got a loaded young classes as well, and they're in our sectional, and they're a rival. And Westview knocked us out last year in a crazy 1-0 game. They're going to have everyone back. It's going to be crazy. Angola is always good. Busco's there. Seriously, it could go either way. There's about 4, 5, 6 teams, I think, and any coach would agree, that could win this conference.
Well, like I said, it's a fun conference to watch because it's so big. I'll just throw a shout out for Super Sam out there. He covers the NECC really well. If there's a bigger cheerleader of NECC in Indiana, it's Super Sam.
Yes,
he does a great job of it. And let's look at your non-conference schedule here real quick. I mean, you're doing some traveling. You got South Bend Adams, Tippecanoe Valley, South Central, the Union Mills variety. Love that team. Northwood, Wabash, Concord, LaVille, Northridge, Jimtown, Culver, Bethany Christian. I think you end with, any of those, are those new? Any of them you're excited to play, or who do you got circling?
Yeah, South Central, that's a new one we got. I've been talking to Coach back and forth, and we go all the way there. That's a long trip for us. It's over our spring break. They just got a freshman pitcher, a sophomore pitcher that committed to Kentucky. He's throwing low 90s. Yeah. So
I mean, I don't know if we'll see him or not, but they won their sectional last year. I think that's we did a 4-year contract with them. Obviously Goshen, we go home and away there to start the year off with them. It's a great start to our season. And then we got obviously Northridge. They're a powerhouse as well. They've got a kid going to Kentucky as well. I mean, I told the guys, I said our schedule's loaded with some pitch. I think we got a lot of good arms up in this area right now and a lot of potential. So it could be low scoring key things defensively, bunt coverages. I mean, little things like that defensively. It could come down to some base running things that could win those games. 1-0, 2-1. I mean, when you get in those pitching matchups, they're going to be great games to watch.
And a lot of young arms too.
A lot of young, yes.
The South Central, I think that kid, I believe, was a freshman last year and threw a no-hitter, and I believe it was the sectional he threw a no-hitter, and the opposing team threw a one-hitter, and that was a sophomore. So yeah, there's a lot of young arms across the state. A lot going on up there up north too. Guys, we're looking forward to a great season up there in the Northeast Corner Conference. It's one of my favorite conferences, a big conference. It's going to be a tight race all year long, and we got some good talent that we're going to see there week in and week out.
I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to seeing him play this year. I love Coach Kaufman. They've got a lot going on this year. I think they were ranked. I'm checking 2A. They were ranked 8th going into the season. They are still young. I think he said their sophomore class there. They've got how many sophomores? They say they had like 14. So wow, they've got a lot going on. Let's move on to our next interview. We're going to Franklin. If you're a baseball fan, you've heard this name. Coach Fireband is with us, as well as the 2023 projected #1 draft pick in Major League Baseball. We're talking, of course, about Max Clark. Let's give it a listen. We're continuing our look into the 2022 baseball season. We're down in Franklin right now, Franklin Community, that is the Grizzly Cubs variety. And we're going to look at the 2022 season. We're happy to have a couple guests here with us. Coach Fireband and Max Clark are joining us. Coach Fireband, let's bring it to you first. I'm looking at that 2021 schedule. Man, that's brutal. You had a tough schedule there. Of course, your conference, let's just throw some stats out here real quick. 2021, you were 20-9 overall. I believe that's if I got that right, you're right there in that ballpark. Included a 12-2 conference championship there in the Mid-State Conference, which is just another great conference, in my opinion, across Indiana. It's between you guys, Mooresville, Martinsville, Plainfield, Decatur Central, Whiteland, Perry Meridian, Greenwood, a lot of that south side of Indianapolis there that's just strong and getting better every day. I mentioned you had a kind of a brutal schedule in 2021. I think you had a nemesis there of Center Grove, but you also had some big wins leading off. You beat the state finals runner-up Fishers. You had you split or you had a win versus Cathedral, and then I think you ended there against Center Grove. But let's look at the conference schedule. Looking at that schedule, obviously you got to circle all of them. But who's standing out there, and what does your outlook look like for that Mid-State Conference schedule?
Well, fortunately, we have a lot of returning guys from last year's team. We lose a couple pieces, but majority of our pitchers, and really outside of just a couple position players, everybody's back. I think a lot of people forget last year was their first high school baseball experience because of, the year before, both of them were freshmen, and we lost that season to COVID. So gaining that experience, and it was most of these guys' first go around in high school, and, kind of understand, hey, we play when it's cold out and you're in school all day, and just those differences between, the spring ball, high school versus your summer stuff. And so, yeah, a lot of experience coming back. Conference will be really, really competitive again. Mooresville will be really good. Whiteland will take a big step forward. And honestly, it just seems like I think this is my 9th year or 10th year as head coach. No matter how good we've been or not, we won, I think, 3 conference games in walk-off fashion last year. I mean, they are just they're common opponents. Those guys don't care who we have. We don't care who they, it's just show up and let's get after each other. So it's a lot of fun. This year's conference will be really, really solid top to bottom.
Let's talk to that guy sitting next to you there.
Yes, sir.
We talked about the competition of the team, and we're talking to Max Clark. And if you're a baseball fan, you know that. We could talk about a lot of awards. I think one that stands out that came out recently was the 2023 projected #1 draft pick for the Major League Baseball draft right there. Max, we've seen you all over. We like your attitude. Matter of fact, I even joked that, of the people doing this interview, you're more qualified than I am. I like your attitude and everything, the way you're presenting yourself and the way you're representing Indiana. You've interviewed on ESPN and everything like that. So I'm sure this interview with Hardy the Hat Guy is going to be your career thing you're going to remember. But you're all over the internet. I want to talk to you and have you talk about some of those guys that you're suiting up with. Talk about your teammates a little bit.
Kind of like Coach Fireman said, we're bringing back 7 guys. And these 7 guys, I've played with them since I was 5 years old. These are like the blood brothers that you grew up with, you played community ball with, you played rec league with, then you played little league with, and now you're finally in that high school stage. We work out together every single day after school, 2 hours every single day, and we've been doing this since we were 10 years old. And, this season we're really looking to do something bigger for the city of Franklin, coming up short in 9 innings against a powerful Center Grove team like we did last year. That really stinks. And it hurts a lot. But I think with the weapons that we're bringing back this year and a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, I think we have the chance to do it. And I think that guys like Drew Doty and Jace Fowler, Logan Davenport, Nolan Netter, Xavier Brown, and then even some incoming freshmen like Landon Basie, Nash Netter, they're going to be huge, absolutely huge in our whole team ability to win the game. I think overall we have a chance to do something that Franklin hasn't seen in a long time. And I think it's going to start with everyone, not just me. So,
well, I'll tell you what, first of all, Franklin community down there, just a beautiful part of the state. Absolutely love it. And, you mentioned Center Grove a couple times there. You guys are still young. Center Grove's still young. So from a fan perspective, this is going to be some exciting baseball coming up. We're talking Franklin Community Grizzlies as we move along with the 2022 coverage of the high school baseball season in Indiana. What do you think, fellas? I tell you what, there's some YouTube videos out there of him doing interviews of his players, and the travel ball scene. He's pretty viral, and he's got a lively social network account. Guys, we got one more interview here, and we're talking to 3 IU commits. We're talking about Tyler Cerny of Center Grove, Brayden Risedorph of East Noble, and Ayden Decker-Petty of Newcastle. Matter of fact, Newcastle just got a new coach, and we'll let Ayden introduce you to him. And let's listen to this last interview we have here coming up.
My name is Tyler Cerny, senior at Center Grove, primary position shortstop. And some of the players, we've got a bunch of D1 players, a bunch of guys that are going to be going to college to play. A couple of those guys, Jacob Wilson, he's going to Dayton. He'll probably be our ace this year. And then we got Ben Murphy. He's a big kid, he's IU commit, 23 in the junior class. He should throw a lot of innings for us, a lot of quality innings. Then around the infield, we got Drew Culbertson. He's going to Mizzou. He's at 23. He can play anywhere in the infield. We got a bunch of good infielders this year. We could probably rotate if I'm being honest. Sam Griffith at second base. He's going to Oakland. Owen Guilfoyle over at first base. He'll be a great hitter for us. And then center field, Mitchell Evans. He's actually a IU football commit. And he'll be roaming down some fly balls out in center field. So those are the notable guys on our team that should really make an impact for us.
All right, so I'm Brayden Risedorph. I'm committed to IU also, and then I go to East Noble High School, and first 2 guys that popped in my mind talking about East Noble would probably be Trace Holiday and then Andrew Johnson. Those are kind of like my 2 biggest guys on our team that I feel like are going to make the most impact. Andrew being my catcher, so obviously we have a close bond there. And then Trace has always been a friend growing up, so he's going to be a valuable arm for us this year. I actually think, don't know if it's official yet, but he's talking with Goshen, thinking about committing to Goshen, so that's going to be a big thing for him, which is awesome. And then Andrew, he's definitely going to get some looks this year. I can feel that. And then another guy, I feel like we got a lot of young guys that are going to make an impact for us this year.
I'm Ayden Decker-Petty. I go to Newcastle High School. My primary position is a right-handed pitcher. We got Corbin Malott at shortstop. He's a Purdue commit. Love having him. He's amazing in the field. And then we got Garrett Roosh at second base. I'm pretty sure he just committed to Allen Community College in Kansas. So that's a big commit there. And then some notable guys that are looking to get scholarships this year, some seniors. We got Eli Cooper. He should be our number 2. He's a great pitcher. And then Bryce Jenkins. He's pretty solid outfielder.
Newcastle Trojans just got a new coach. Tell us what you know. I think he was a JV coach. Let's have you be the official announcement right here.
I'm pretty sure he's been with Newcastle for quite a long time. You know, we're happy to have him. We kind of expected with these last few weeks with everything going on. But, you know, we're just happy to have him, you know, finally get a coach, get that situation together, and get ready to focus on the season.
We're talking about Frank McMahon, a longtime assistant coach up there at Newcastle. And let's go right now. Let's go to, this is kind of off script here, but Tyler, let's go to you. And I don't want to throw you on the spot here, but you guys are independents this year.
Yep.
So tell me about, you know, I don't think that probably changes anything. You know, what's the coach told you? You guys are still going to have a rigorous schedule. It's probably business as usual, isn't it?
Yeah. Without being in the NIC conference, that actually kind of opens up more games that we can actually play different teams out of conference. Like we're going to play Westfield this year, Jeffersonville, and those are the 2. And then we're playing a team from Michigan, and they should be pretty good. So yeah, we won't have to get to play for the conference championship, but we'll get those extra games against some good teams that'll prepare us to make that deep state run.
Brayden, you're in the Northeast 8, which is I love that conference. You know, you've got Leo had a good year last year, 7-0, 29-4 overall. You guys had a good year at 21-7. I think your final record was Norwell at 20-10. You know, DeKalb historically has just been a powerhouse up there in that conference. And then, you know, Huntington North year in and year out, they're competitive. You know, from the players, you know, what are some of the games that are maybe, who is the big rivalries year in and year out, or who's maybe somebody you have circled on the calendar that's on your schedule or in the conference this year?
DeKalb, easily. I mean, it's always bitter between us. You know, we always talking back and forth no matter what the situation is, and finally got to get back at them last year, which was pretty nice, especially because we lost to them freshman year pretty bad, and they also took us out of sectionals too. So
Newcastle, you know, you guys are in the Hoosier Heritage, another good conference. You know, I think, Tyler, you're the only one south here, but another good conference, Mount Vernon, but Greenfield Central, always good. Pendleton Heights, New Pal, Yorktown, Shelbyville, Newcastle, Delta, you know, just off the top of my head, Yorktown, you know, they've got a kid that was drafted last year from IU. So, you know, they're putting people, you know, out there every year, you know, looking at your schedule. Anybody that, you know, year in and year out maybe is a rivalry, or somebody that you've got circled that you know is going to be a contender this year?
I say everybody in the whole conference. We didn't do too high in the conference last year, so we're just coming for everybody. We're trying to take the thing for sure.
Guys, I'll tell you what, talking to a lot of these players, I think Indiana baseball is in good hands this year. Real quick, before we wrap things up, I got to give a shout out to Heron High School. This is the hat that finished the project. This was the last hat collected for the hat project that you see behind me that I finished last year. So I wore that one out of respect to Coach Aaron. What's that?
The Heron of Cairns, that's their nickname.
That's right. Got a really cool nickname. Guys, I'm going to take the final out today where we're talking about errors because I led the show off with an error. But looking to the 2000 – what's that?
Are you going to do the final out before or after Jeff gives us the trivia question?
Well, I was going to give him the trivia question, but the trivia question was given when we had no audio, so I don't think anybody heard the trivia question.
Okay, err on me. Err on me.
Well, that's only your first air, and I have 3 per show. But Jeff, tell us real quick what you're going to start.
Question in the future.
Jeff, tell us about what you're going to start next week. It would have started this week if I'd have had the audio fixed.
Well, it has to do with the President of the United States. And the trivia question, somebody can sleep on it for 7 days. What president of the United States has attended and thrown out the first pitch more than any other president of the United States?
That's a hook, folks. You got to wait till next week or just Google it and run it. Show up next week. Steve, what are you looking forward to for the 2022 season?
The season can start on the 28th as far as games go, and I want to get to as many places I've never been as possible, and that's a lot of them. So I got
I
some,
tell you.
I'm looking at my calendar and figuring out where I can go.
I'm going to be putting a lot of miles on the Hatmobile this year, catching these games. Folks, don't forget that Twitter hashtag that you see right there on your screen. If you want to get your highlights on our show, tag your post with that TWI BAI. That's This Week in Baseball Across Indiana, or you can just tag our Twitter handle, which is Home Plate BAI. Folks, that is our 2022 high school baseball season preview show. I don't know if you're as excited as I am. If you're just tuning in to this, our final out, make sure you go to baseballacrossindiana.com to see the full episode of This Week in Baseball Across Indiana for March 20th, 2022. Today was our high school baseball season preview show, and man, it was fun. For today's final out, we go back to the beginning of the show where I've said, if you've been following us this is our episode 9, I lead the team in errors. I had one today with no audio feed coming through. So it goes without saying that we need to, or let's back up. Some of the most talented players in the country were talked about on this show today. And the one constant in baseball, and I'm not giving my Field of Dreams speech here, but the one constant in baseball is errors. Anybody watching this show knows that already. Anybody watching this show knows that the best who ever played it failed to get on base 7 out of 10 times. Who knows that better than anybody? High school coaches. The beauty of baseball lies in the lessons that come from errors. I would argue that there is no stage for a teenage boy that is better at teaching the value of failure better than baseball. Like I said, the best high school players in the country will make errors this year. Max Clark of Franklin, Andrew Dukanich of Brebeuf, Cade Stanifer of Westfield. These guys are some of the most talented players in the country. But baseball never has and never will be a sport where one star leads to team success. So it goes without saying that we need to acknowledge that these 14 to 18-year-old kids are going to make errors. I don't care who they are. And allow the great coaches we have in this state to handle those errors. But for the final out, I leave you with one equally as big reminder, and that is this. And I'm talking to players and parents. Your players learn from errors, but so do your coaches. So let them. We'll see you next week, folks, on This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. Have a good night.